Hey, what up everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here tonight with a late night video. I was able to watch December to Dismember, of course, the ECW 2006 pay-per-view. I was on Twitter today and WWE tweeted out the fact that 9 years ago today was the December to Dismember, and boy oh boy, this was a bad one. I've honestly never watched this DVD. I ended up watching it on the WWE Network, but I've owned this DVD for probably at least 5 years. I never watched the show. I've always heard of how bad this was, and it's always sort of had this gimmicky image of being the worst pay-per-view that WWE has ever put on. Of course, this is the ECW brand, but this is under the WWE banner. In 2006, after the success of the Rise and Fall of ECW DVD and the ECW One Night Stand pay-per-view, ECW was brought back, put on the Sci-Fi Network. It was the third brand for WWE, behind Raw, behind SmackDown. The show was... It wasn't good. It wasn't great. It was 1 hour, and that's probably a lot what I used to like about Main Event when it was on the WWE Network before being pulled because of the UK contract that made it exclusive to them. It was a 1 hour show. It was almost like a small independent wrestling company that had a little bit of money, had their own television network. And that's basically what you got to see. Moving on from there, we go to the Extreme Elimination Chamber already in the main event. This was supposed to be Lashley, Big Show, Rob Van Dam, CM Punk, and Test, and Sabu. Sabu ended up getting laid out after the first match of the night. We see him getting carted off and headed to the hospital. And he's replaced by Hardcore Holly, a guy that Paul Heyman on ECW had been trying to get placed into the match for weeks upon weeks, and never able to get him in there. Now here he is, just getting into the match. Ends up being Hardcore Holly and Rob Van Dam starting off the night. CM Punk is the first guy that gets out of his pod to come into there. He's eliminated by a five-star frog splash from Rob Van Dam very, very early in the match. It was one of the reasons why everything would blow up shortly in ECW after this. One thing leads to another. Once Bobby Lashley is supposed to get released from his pod, ends up getting locked in by Paul Heyman's security guards. He has to bust out through the top through a table, which is placed inside of his pod. He climbs out through the top, ends up wrestling Test, defeating Test, and then waiting on Big Show to come out. Bobby Lashley hits a spear on Big Show, 1, 2, 3, and gets the win. Lots of things happen. Paul Heyman leaves the company. Tommy Dreamer and Stevie Richards turn in their resignation, trying to leave the company. Big Show ends up leaving the company. Everything blows up in their face. Big Show was just at a point in his career when he just, didn't want to wrestle anymore. From here, he ended up trying to become a boxer, wrestled an independent match with Hulk Hogan in Memphis, replacing Jerry the King Lawler, and then just sitting out basically until getting the call to come back for the big Floyd Mayweather match at WrestleMania 24. Paul Heyman and Vince McMahon ended up getting in a fight over the direction of ECW. Basically, Paul saying that they took him off of SmackDown, they put him on ECW, that he was going to have, almost creative control over the former brand that he had, and he had ideas about where he wanted to go. Vince totally rewrote ECW December to Dismember at the last minute, making it just a total, complete bullshit of a show. Paul Heyman wanted to make CM Punk be champion. He wanted CM Punk to defeat Big Show very early with submission in the early parts of the match to show you that CM Punk was a real competitor in ECW. Vince didn't like that idea and ended up saying that he wanted Lashley to be the guy who ended up getting the deal. This would build up, of course, Lashley being the guy to go up against Vince McMahon, later on at the company. And it just blowing up in everybody's face with the big WrestleMania match, which ended up doing a big, huge number for the company. But at the end of the day, I don't know. It just wasn't where you wanted to be. I think you could have set up Trump any other way in the world. But it is what it is. A very bad show. I highly recommend you don't watch it unless you really want to put yourself through torture one night and see what it's all about. December to Dismember 2006. I've seen it once. Probably never want to see it again.